to be able to share. Oh, you got it. So I can share my screen, but I have to, hold on. Oh, yeah. Should I share the screen now, Laura? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have a PowerPoint presentation. And this is not the entire thing, but this is kind of the, let me know when you all can see my screen.
Well, we can see all your notes as well as the
You
slide
won't in
show.
just a moment. Can you still see my notes?
No.
Great.
Now it's
All
full
right.
screen.
All right, awesome. So what we wanted to talk about is some of the, some of the things actually we were just talking about in our conversation are infused in some of these slides. We only have about 6. So if there are, Laura, do we just kind of want to flow with conversations and questions as they come up, or do we want to wait till the end for questions?
You can go for the flow and entertain questions.
Okay, so questions and comments as we go along, just, pop in, you all. Laura, if you can, I don't know if hand raising and all that happens, but I probably can't see it. So Artists Design the Future, we are creatives building community. And what I want to do is offer to you to imagine. And we want to say, did my slide change?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. We want to say that we are focused and working to form Artists Design the Future as a worker cooperative, company of majority BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, including and inclusive of able and disabled people, to provide consulting, like what we were talking about, artist-led community engagement services, like what we were talking about, and also with the big picture vision to develop mixed-use buildings as live workspace for artists and as commercial space for nonprofits and ideally other art-focused or culture-focused entities, and all of them to own this building cooperatively, develop it, plan it, develop it, build it, and manage it together cooperatively with our guidance and support. So I just want you to imagine we're hyper-focused in the area we're focused in right now, which is the South Side of Chicago, specifically and intentionally the greater South Shore area, but not limited to that. Just the current locus of focus. And because we want to develop equitable, creative, and stronger communities, just starting there. And it really isn't a start. This is kind of iteration 2 from what Laura led many, many years ago on the North Side. And then the reason I say, and I don't include in that conversation, the Bronzeville Artist Lofts where Alpha is, and the Cornerstone is not as a slight or disrespect. It's like comparing apples to oranges. We're talking about setting up people to win as owners, and not that art space and art lofts are not important, valuable, and needed, but we're specifically focused on helping provide and create ownership for creatives. So what is, you might be wondering, if you don't know what a worker cooperative is, it's basically our ability, people's ability to create their own table and opportunities for themselves, obviously in partnership with each other and with other outside partners, but not waiting and sitting around for opportunities to be given or to be asked or invited to opportunities, but to go out and create them. So part of the reason, excuse me, I should not have done that. Part of the reason in Illinois, it's a bit easier here is in 2019, the Worker Cooperative Act was passed in the state of Illinois, identifying worker cooperatives as a legal entity, just like you might have LLC, S Corp, C Corp, and other things. And so you can actually form your entity as a worker cooperative and not have to fit the box of extractive economic-based entities. So what is worker cooperative, and Laura, please jump in because I know you're the resident expert. I am just sharing the slides based on what I know and we share. It includes, and this is not exhaustive, but it's kind of hitting the high points or the, salient points, is democratic decision making. A group of people in Illinois, you have to have at least 3 to form your entity, but each person, it's one member, one vote. It's very egalitarian, if I might. Is that the right word?
Yep.
No. Is that okay? And so the workers are owners of the business equally. And if you see on the right, I have some Kwanzaa principles. The idea of one member, one vote, that's the first day of Kwanzaa, umoja, which means unity. Without unity, a worker cooperative can't function, or at least not function well, and probably won't sustain itself. Members own and control the business and run it together or make decisions together through that one member, one vote. That's the second day of Kwanzaa. Kujichagulia, which is one of my favorites, which is self-determination. Let's create our own table. The member owners collaborate together and maintain the business. I kind of said this already. That's the third day of Kwanzaa, which is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. And they earn the other component is it's not, we're not against people earning money. It's not important. It's just up there with oxygen. And, we want to have retirement. We want to be able to express ourselves. We want to raise our families. We want to buy houses. We want to, have things just like everybody else. I think too often creatives are set aside as like this separate part of society in people's minds, but we're citizens just like everybody else. And so the intention of our cooperative is to earn income for the members of the cooperative from consulting, the artist-led engagement services. So that's more upfront. And then the arts-based development has a longer term, has a longer term financial payoff in the developer fee after the properties are developed, which can take 2 to 5 years in an ideal world. And that is the fourth day of Kwanzaa, which is Ujamaa, which is cooperative economics, shared work and wealth. So that is the basics and basis of our Artists Design the Future Worker Cooperative. Did I miss anything, Laura?
You got it.
So what are some of the problems that we see out here in the market, in the world? Oftentimes doing that community engagement, having a different idea, it obviously requires money to function, and often, especially with building development of this kind, there can be lack of funding for that early stage planning and pre-development for engaging the community, because most entities just want to be like, hey, I got this idea, don't you, let me show it to the community. You all should be so happy we made it. And the community is like, well, wait, hold up, like the song, hold up, wait a minute. What do you mean this is for us? You didn't ask us what we wanted, or we don't like your idea, or we think you should tweak your idea. And a lot of that can be proactively addressed before coming to the community by consulting and planning with the community in advance. But there's not a lot of funding for that. So you've got that small developer, large developer dilemma. Large developers have pots of money and have money up front or from former projects to cover that cost. Smaller entities have to find creative ways to cover that. And often the community engagement doesn't include compensating, even via stipend, the community for participating, but all these other entities are on staff and they have salaries and they're getting paid to do it. COVID, obviously, as we all know, has had a huge impact in so many Black, BIPOC, Indigenous, economically marginalized communities, regardless of race, like the arts. In our specific neighborhood, that of locus of focus in South Shore and the greater South Shore, but South Shore specific, the income is quite low compared to the citywide average, which is mid 70,000. Over close to half of the people earn less than $25,000 a year. Homeownership is very low. And I already talked about, artists, kind of the impact in the arts. Early stage development, we've kind of talked about that, but you don't often find early stage development planning with the community. And when you do, it almost never includes the arts in a qualitative way that is impactful beyond just what we might call art washing. Art washing being, hey, let's put a mural up here that talks about our project, or let's engage with the community, make a mural, but it's not towards the end of including the community or the artists in planning. And definitely extractive mindset from that perspective. And then you do have lots of creatives out here, and community for that matter. Creatives are part of the community too, but who want to own, who want to create greater opportunity, and they go out on their own and try to do it, and they fall flat or they succeed, but often it's very ad hoc. It's many times ineffective because they don't have the experience. And so the collective effort is where the power is, thus the worker cooperative. And the other challenge is they're met with incorrect assumptions about what artists are capable of, what our skill sets are. I even had a woman one time have the nerve to say to me, well, how hard can it be to throw some paint up on a wall? Well, first of all, I don't even do painted murals, hadn't for like almost 20 years, but just the disrespect of, and it's, I don't know if it was intentional, but just the idea that the perception is art is easy, doesn't take a lot. And so your capacity and your skill sets, they can't be that huge. So let's talk about, I'd like this to be a little bit of a discussion, or we would, about what creatives bring to the table. We have a list here of some things that we believe and know are skill sets, value, and things that creatives bring to the table, like being able to bring together multiple viewpoints through cross-sector, sometimes industries that are very verticalized and siloed, independent of just collaborating. We also can do things that bring many hands to the table to get people to collaborate. There is the cultural competency, obviously, creatives bring to the table to understand, appreciate, and interact and help others to engage more in growing their cultural competency. But I'm not going to just go down the list and bore you. Take a look at the list real quick. Do you think or know in your mind other skill sets and value competencies that creatives bring to the table that aren't listed? You can just unmute yourself. So we talked earlier about that idea I had, the engagement in the street with the community. So creative ways of engaging. The obvious, let's not miss the obvious of whatever the artistic skill is, right? Sometimes it's just limited to that in people's minds. But there's so much more. Mm-hmm. You'd be surprised how many people are actually artists or creatives that just have regular jobs and they never told you they were a creative. Or, oh yeah, go ahead.
I think they're resourceful. I mean, in terms of they know how to do much out of little, which is not necessarily well, it is a good thing because I think they can be resourceful in terms of wearing a whole bunch of different hats. And I don't know if that falls within one of these to duplicate, but I think they can be very resourceful.
I like that. I like the vision. I'm sorry, the visual. You said make much out of a little.
Yeah. That's one thing, I think. Because of it's part of the creativity, and it's just different ways of looking at things through a different lens, which I think you got with many viewpoints in terms of the cross-sectional lens.
And forgive me for looking down. I'm actually typing these ideas into my notes.
Those are some things that come to mind.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so one thing I want to say, cultural competency is kind of a academic description, but so oftentimes our communities are described in what they lack, what's not there, disinvestment, etc. Without recognition of the history and the rich cultural life, it may be underground, it may be informal, it may be not measured by museum attendance or the like. And I think there's a huge kind of gap or silo between health, education, and social services. It's like we're in competition with each other for not enough dollars going around. And I think this is where artists can start talking in a very positive sense about the overlap that happens between those silos. So there was an example in Jackson, Mississippi, of a big box empty store that was turned into kind of a hub for social services. But they had a key board member who knew and understood culture and arts activities and had them think about how the population surrounding the center connects with this. And so they turned the whole, not just lobby, but the whole entire interior space, everybody who comes to visit looking for a job or getting whatever assistance and connecting with resources, got to wander past quilts, storytelling, a different image of the community than what previously existed. And so I think that's an interesting model for changing the perception or the competition between social services, culture, and
Where was that, you said?
it's Jackson, Mississippi, and
Okay.
I've got a case study for it, and let me look and I'll share the link.
Interesting too that Jackson has, they have an organization there called Cooperation Jackson, which is a cooperative and focused on some of those
Yeah.
principles. Anybody else have other,
One
I
of
think
the-
this, go ahead.
I don't mean, one of the things that you all have said, and one of the reasons why I think you created this cooperative is because a lot of times you all will come, artists will come and they will regentrify the neighborhood, and then they lose it because they don't have ownership in it, which is why you want the ownership. So I don't know if you capture that. I think they have like a pioneer spirit. And I don't, in terms of they're pioneer, and I don't know if that is captured and invigorate, reimagine, and highlight community idea, because I think they're trendsetters, they're pioneers, and I don't know how to capture that, or if you think it's captured in there, because that was
I think the way you're spelling it and calling it out is valuable. I like I said, I keep looking down, I type fast and taking notes. One of the things that I remember being shocked, and I went, oh, okay. And I realized this seed was planted in me back when I was at School of the Art Institute getting my degree in art. One of my humanities professors said, artists are the vanguard of gentrification. And I was like, oh, how dare you? It was like this affront. And I went, what? And in the back of my mind, there was just always this lingering thing of like, I don't want to be that. I want to be, we are those trendsetters. We are all those things you said, but I don't want to be the one. So it's not like we actually create it intentionally. We just do what we do, as they say. And it follows us. And it always makes me think of that. His name was Prexy Nesbitt. And I remember like him standing in front of us to this day, because I had at 19, I had no awareness of that. So part of what we're talking about as well, like you said, with ownership, that changes the game hugely. We just got.
But they still have that trait in terms of that pioneer spirit to just get it off the ground.
Yes, but what I'm saying is not with the intention of inviting gentrification. Like that's not ever the intention for artists to do what we do.
I think that our case study, the case study that I brought to the table or to the cafe today, was Sojourner Truth, because in 2005, the owner of the business incubator came to her and wanted these murals to be painted throughout the corridor areas of this building. knowing that changing the inside of it made the building more friendly, and he was able to bring more leasers on, agencies on that wanted to be in that building, because once they had the ooh when they came through, and it wasn't by osmosis or it just happened. It was where it was predetermined by the owners saying, "I want to commission you to do these pieces from a project that." Am I correct, Shauna, or not? But from a project she already did for one of the businesses in that incubator, and they saw her work, and then they wanted to commission her, and then that's how we started the murals project there by having two murals from the entryway, and then it gained momentum where there's 2,000 feet of murals in that space right now in artwork, and then they formed, and so all of those things started um, happening by the artists going in beautifying the space, and so now we have, like, 15 years later, we have a larger museum space, but that's with all of the work that the museum has done throughout the that 15-year span, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So just to bring us back in, because we do have a couple more slides, and I want us to be able to continue conversing and not just have slides up in our face. I would love to just hear any other additions to this list. All this stuff has been really valuable so far, and I don't want to cut your thoughts off at all. We'll continue the conversation.
I just think you've hit a lot of the bullet points on here. Kudos. I really like this, what do you call it, a slide deck, so when you get ready to do that, to a funder, it's really tight, just to kind of give you that, high five. I really like this presentation.
Thank you. My sleepless nights, thank you.
Good job.
So I don't want to move too fast. I was going to go to the next slide, but is there anyone else who wants to add?
I don't know if this is important, but cultivating the relationship between the youth and the seniors, seniors, like in this community, senior artists, I think a lot of them have a feeling of, their work history being devalued with all of the upcoming youth and emerging artists, and just to make sure that that gap is bridged and that relationship is strong, and that the youth are valuing the work that the senior artists have paved over the years, and then of course the seniors looking, to the youth or the young emerging artists to come and take the torch forward, but just valuing each other's work and building and strengthening, their relationship, I think is important.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Let me just respond to Shauna's suggestion about youth and seniors working together. And there's some really interesting ways that can happen. One is, your board members are older, they're leaders in the community. They probably may not, I'm making assumptions here, they might not be the most active social networking, but you can recruit youth who are active social networking pros to take the story of the organization and package it in a way that your senior board members can then use and learn new ways of connecting with the world. They're already sold on the organization, but it helps strengthen those networks. Another way that I saw that happen was the Marwin Foundation had a fundraiser, and it was mostly well-heeled folks who paid the money, but they were to participate, but it was the young artists who were assigned a single senior and gave him a paper suit or an apron or whatever, and they went over and worked on a mural or an artwork together. And it was the youngster who was explaining, here's how you do it, and here's what it means, and what, kind of entertaining their input from the seniors. And so there was a much more intimate conversation that was happening in a very kind of boisterous fundraising reception kind of event. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Sometimes there's ways of integrating it without it being a formal program.
I like that. Thank you, Laura, sharing.
Awesome. I know Liza just sent me a message saying she'll send some more ideas because we all have these. So if anybody has any more going forward, drop them in the chat or bring them up when we have our conversation. I'll just keep going. Whoops, if I can figure out how to. There we go.
Oh.
So I'm sorry, was someone trying to say
I
something?
said, oh, wow.
Yeah, and look, I'm telling you, sleepless nights. I was not kidding. I was not kidding.
Oh, wait.
So the premise here and what we know to be true is from our many years of experience doing this work is that the success with community engagement with the arts, it really has to start early stage planning. So someone's doing a quality of life, they're planning, an architect is planning a building and being hired by a company or an entity to do that. Bringing the arts in early can change the game. It can change the reception and the adoption of the idea by the community. It matters. I have close to 30, maybe over, I lost count, years experience creating collaborative, community-based public art murals. And that is the basis, is it's not about only what I came to do, it's about what the community wants and hearing it and translating it or incorporating it within what you want to do or have been asked to do, so that the community is not just informed, but integrated, respected, heard. It, like the slide says, it builds trust and support because they're included. And we just add to that, and it's an equitable process. And also we just want to add, because this is a value of ours as well, is to have things be accessible to people who are often not included, those with disabilities, divergent learning styles, all those kinds of things. So that's really the magic. That is, or part of the magic, should I say, because your stakeholders, they feel ownership and they protect what they help create. They protect the ideas of it. They protect the creation, the physical thing in the end, if that's what it is. They promote it. They're ambassadors. They build on it. So that's really key in community development. So the arts placemaking gives a powerful way for communities to be listened to be engaged, to be integrated early in the planning process. And for our purposes, the home ownership, collective home ownership in an affordable way is the other kind of part of that triangle that supports community development and wealth building. So therein is the magic, where they all interact and overlap. Whoops, I went too far. So that's what we wanted to share and discuss today. It's already, let's see, it's 23 after the hour. So Laura, do we want to, we'll just hold that slide for next month and kind of engage in more conversation around, I think I can go back to the slide about, oh boy, how do I do this? What the creatives bring to the table. I know there were still some conversation going on around that. Is everybody okay with me to stop sharing my screen? Or, oh, maybe, should I have left that up?
Or can Laura, someone put up the Jacksonville link?
Oh yeah, I had it up. Do you want me to put that back up?
Yeah, because it was just up shortly and then it came down.
Okay, hold on. Wait. Is this it? Nope, that's not it. Okay, it was in the chat and I just clicked on it. So let me click on it again. This one?
Yes,
Did you want me to scroll down?
sure.
So,
This was going back to this. This is where they actually have a co-op of ownership.
is that a question?
Yes.
Laura, is this a cooperative? You're muted. You're muted.
So Jackson Medical Mall Foundation is a non-for-profit, but Jackson has, so that's something that happened in Jackson. And they started it in 1996. So they've been at it for quite a long time. But Jackson itself owns, I mean, there are co-ops in the community that that farmers created. And I think this maybe happened way before the Jackson Medical Mall ever happened. So it's just, it's a community that knows and understands where co-ops really work for them.
And some of the history of cooperatives having started, well, the historical millennia back, but the official history having started in among Southern Black
Mhm.
farmers. That makes sense. So this is the looks like it incorporates a lot of things we were talking about, you know, the arts and culture focus, intergenerational programs, strategic, they're talking about strategic planning processes. It looks very community engagement. I am excited to actually look more into this in particular, Jackson Medical Mall Foundation. Very cool, very cool.
So I also put in the chat that the fellow who was on the board of the medical mall is,
Significant.
let me look and see.
I see it, significantdevelopments.us.
Yeah, Daniel Johnson. So he is the one that kind of told the board, hey, you're not paying attention to people who walk in and out the door. And so he did some very non-traditional planning and just walking around and talking to all the neighbors about where they go for this service, that service, you know. And so he's very good at kind of taking this planning into more of a arts. He's thinking outside of the box and probably because he's a member of a co-op and knows about community education and where you have to kind of stay linked in with people, go where they're at and keep them in the loop.
Exactly, and that's like a no-brainer.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the things that when I was talking to Esther, he was like, it's no-brainer, right? You know, to take that currency exchange and all those abandoned buildings right along the green line and make it a people space. You know, it solved a lot of issues about commuting, you know, getting over there, the expansion, you know, community buy-in, university buy-in, and having all the pieces there.
Right.
And mentioned that, you know, he worked for CTA as a consultant to bring all that, spend all those millions of dollars down the blue line in public artwork. So, but it's all those networks that you're spinning around out there. So,
Right. So one of the problems that we have in Chicago with transportation-oriented development is that where I live, they're building 6, 7-story rental buildings that are all market rate. And they're getting subsidized dollars from the city because the theory is that the more people that live close to transportation don't need a car and can get to their job. Well, they're investing in already impacted communities on the Northwest side, and they're not taking these investments to the South side or the West side that enables people to, get to their jobs. It's just because they're extractive. Rental properties, they pay off their contractors, they do these beautiful buildings, the realtors are marketing them to a segment of the population that doesn't even live here. And then when it's done, they sell it to an international consortium of investment interests. And so all the money that's invested by the city and the people paying rent doesn't provide any local ownership pride. It doesn't connect with the community at all. And that's what Kiela and I are learning from. We're participating in a equitable development. We're building colleagues that kind of understand the dynamics of that extractive environment, and we're learning how to show up at those meetings and criticize their projects by doing and understanding our own projects.
And how to promote and move forward the projects that we want to create in the world and in the community and with the community.
Yeah.
From an equitable standpoint, assuring that the intention and kind of motivation is not siloed just in economic return, but that returns are considered across many spectrums, many lenses that include other considerations that are not financial, that can be really decision makers around whether to even do a project. The way most development happens right now, it is financial based, some affordable housing, even affordable housing. Like it's affordable supposedly for the people who will be renting or to meet certain AMI area median incomes. However, most of the time, the intention and the motivation to do the development is the return that the developer is going to get in creating that development. Now, that's just the reality of the numbers of people out here doing it. There's not an overwhelming force that really is interested in equity and in not having to squeeze out every dollar, for their pocket. It's like, how do we spread what is important and how do we make decisions outside of just the economic return?
That's an interesting question statement. If any of you on the call here in Chicago, I'm one of the hosts for Alderman Pat Dahl's run for Senate seat. She's running for Bobby Rush's Senate seat, and her fundraiser is tomorrow night here at Gallery Gashard, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And I'm only bringing that up to say she's been a very strong supporter of the arts here in the 3rd Ward while she's been alderman. She's been very favorable to the project that we're doing here. And if any of you want to come out, like I said, I'm one of the hosts, and let me know, because we need you to ask those questions and how she's going to represent, and what platform she has on the arts on a national scale when she goes to the Senate. So again, you're welcome to come tomorrow night. Let me know. Sign up on the Eventbrite. I'll sponsor your ticket. I need to get some people here, that have these hard questions and, can talk to her on those levels that we're talking. Sorry, it's such a late notice.
No, I've seen her commitment, and she's definitely
It'd be
in
great
it to
talk
win
her
it.
on
Oh,
those
you said it's tomorrow night?
tomorrow night, 6:00. I'll send you the link to Eventbrite. That way, if you're
I'm actually gonna text you about it because I have a question before I,
commit, yeah, great.
yeah.
You're welcome, Lisa. Rhonda, who wants to?
I'm out of town tomorrow, but I'm going to Baltimore tomorrow. But
Oh, okay, nice.
but you're
Yeah.
back home.
I am.
That was
I got
quick.
back home
I thought you were going to be there all winter. You were bragging about that nice warm weather to me.
Oh, I was gonna break it up. I can't just be sitting there in the hot, in the heat. It's freezing up here in Chicago. I needed to come home.
What was the temperature where you were?
Like in the 70s.
And you wanted to come here. You know you're lying.
I did. I want to come home. I got artwork to do. I bought I don't know, 24 canvases and ordering some more. I got a lot of work that I want to do personally. As an artist, I need to have time in the studio, focus time. And kind of. They said when I came back from the South, oh, you don't have that gray skin anymore that we get when we're in cold weather. I had melanin in my skin, so it's time to come back up to Chicago and, be in the city with like-minded people like yourselves. Then I'll go back to the South because the South has its issues.
Well, I know, the intention of giving us the floor today, thank you, is generally intended to end somewhere around 2:30. So unless there are other people who have some more to add to that list we were talking about, what creatives bring to the table.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm. How long of a process do you think it'll take? Do you have a timeline in mind?
You're talking about for the mixed use building?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes and no, but I'm going to let Laura capture that because I have been talking a lot.
We know, kind of working backwards, construction's going to take a minimum of 12 months, maybe to get permits and everything else, maybe a year and a half. That's
Right.
fast track. In order to get to that point, we got to raise a significant amount of money. We got the city to kind of pay attention to this, and we got to figure out where our building site is. And so this is where we're kind of going out to the community to help think about it and all the different ways that, what do artists need? How much can artists afford? What does it really cost? These are all the questions that we need to ask that will go into our feasibility study. And so the other thing that we need to ask, is there sufficient resources to make this project possible? We're going to find out from arts organizations and artists what they can afford. We'll find out from the architect and contractors what it costs. And then we got to sit down with the city and foundations and everybody who puts money into projects like this. Is there sufficient resources to kind of make this thing work? So when we get that all answered, and that's what the feasibility study is for, then we put everybody to work to solve the problems and get it written down and get the applications in to the city, to SBA, to TIF, to, a bank will lend us construction money, but on the basis of everything else being taken care of. And one of our strategies is to go to the artist community first to talk about shared ownership, how much can they afford? And if we pre-sell the stakeholder openings, we're talking about 30 units, 25 residential and 5 non-for-profits, or 5
Commercial.
commercial units. So there's that many units. I don't know that we're going to have that many users. It depends on how much space they need. But by training the community in making a financial commitment to this, understanding what it is and signing on, that eliminates a lot of risk. It doesn't take any marketing because we got our users all lined up. And so that makes getting the construction loan very easy. So if we're talking about a non-for-profit needing space for $1, it still costs money for them to get in there, but where is their money coming from that makes it free or $1 for, you know?
So would you say that, like, in answer to Rhonda's question, it's really dependent on all the factors Laura just talked about, right? So if you have your buyers, you don't have what they call lease up time. That's already done. You just have the move-in time. So the time frame is a minimum 2 years,
Right.
minimum. Could be as long as 5. And so it really depends. I mean, for our purposes right now, we've done a lot of kind of the foundational work for community networking, but the actual going out to the community to get the feasibility study done, it's because of the challenges around that catalytic capital I talked about in the slide deck. It really depends on like how fast we're able to put that funding together to make that part happen, because once that's done, then we can, you know, the steps that lead us to design and construction can actually move. So you know, the development is not a straight and narrow path. So I know that doesn't really help, but if you think between 2 to 5 years in your mind, that's realistic.
Yeah, I can see where that is. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think another way to look at it is if we are deliberate and get our feasibility study done about who we're serving, how many spaces, what it's going to cost, conceivably we could negotiate a joint venture with a developer who does kind of the financing, construction management part of it. And so then we become kind of a buyer's representative. He's building it to suit our values, our population, our business plan, et cetera. That could happen. But
Yeah, it's good, good.
So listening to all of you ladies, I am inspired. I am so inspired, and I want to do the exact same thing here in Sacramento. And so, I mean, I'm just like blown away here today. And
well, I wish we could include your audio in some of our applications, because that's our intention, is for this to ripple within the local area, the South Side, the West Side, our city, the region, and nationally, even internationally, because we need more of it everywhere.
yes, I mean, in any way possible, you know, I'll be on these calls, you know, and just you ladies can help guide me through this process here, you know, in California and Sacramento. I want to replicate exactly what you're doing. I think it's just so empowering, and it's much needed here in Sacramento. And so, and I feel like the museum can be a part of the project, you know, but to bring artists in Sacramento are really suffering. And I try to help as much as I can. A very diverse group of artists, just bringing them in, sharing information. When I get opportunities, I bring artists in to assist with mural commissions. So Man, I'm just blown away.
Well, let me just tweak that a hair. So I come from a family of architects, licensed architects, and I did a presentation some years back at the National Organization Minority Architects Conference about art and architecture, specifically murals. But one of the things that I was talking about is how important it is to include that artist with the architect when they're meeting with the client, not after the building is designed and built and done and slap a mural on it. So I just want to implore of you to start making a mental shift and in your actions to bring that idea you have for the mural, let's say, to the planning table for future things and say, okay, can we bring an artist, like stipend them or pay them a few hours to come in and consult with us on how that would happen and how we could maybe integrate the creation of it in developing whatever project you're doing, whether it's big or small, because you'll be surprised how much more value you'll get than what you're thinking.
Thank you. I agree.